Welcome,
Okay.
everybody, to another episode of Insurance Tech Webinar here with Accelerated Automation. I am your host, Mariah Gates, founder and CEO of Accelerated Automation, and I absolutely love bringing you guys wonderful technology to use in your business and your insurance agency specifically. And I'm really excited to have Gabriel and now Peter, who just joined us also from WonderWrite, here with us today. Gosh, you guys, if you are doing any kind of commercial insurance, and you are so sick of the repetitive documents and supplements and applications and accords and all of these things that you have to fill out over and over and over. And if you're old school like I used to be, and you're still like filling in PDFs or handwriting stuff, like you're probably making your process like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times longer than it has to be. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear from Gabriel and Peter today at WonderWrite. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Gabriel. And if you can kind of like introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up at WonderWrite.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mariah. My name's Gabe Farman, and I'm a senior account executive here at WonderWrite. I have experience in B2B SaaS sales. So started out in like prop tech, moved over to like AI recruiting, bounced over to insure tech. Actually founded Peter through WellFound, which is like a startup specific job board. We connected, hit it off, and here I am.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. And pretty recent, you said, right?
Yeah, about 3 to 4 months new on the team.
So coming in new to a new company, like what was your first impression when you started learning like WonderWrite?
Insurance as a whole is a lot. So it's definitely a learning curve, but thankfully I have Peter, who's very well versed and has a lot of knowledge in the industry. So it's I've learned a lot thanks to Peter.
Awesome. And Peter, thank you so much for being here also today. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and why you founded WonderWrite?
Yeah, so like probably a few of the folks in the call, I was a licensed insurance producer. I'm actually still a licensed producer. I think probably at this point, 14 years since 2011. And so I was working at a family insurance agency with about 20 people in Massachusetts, Cape Cod. We did a lot of excess and surplus with like high wind exposure. So we were doing a lot of paper forms. So I struggled to fill out accord forms in our agency management software. I sold personal. I ended up selling some of the biggest commercial deals we had done at our agency. And then as soon as we would, sign a broker record letter, we'd jump into just mountains of paperwork. And it was not the experience that I wanted my customers to have. And I was like, there has to be an easier way to fill out all this paperwork and not just fill it out to win the deal and be first to market, but like more importantly, save all the data that comes with it because that data is actually really valuable. I earned a certified risk manager designation amongst others when I was a producer and really trying to figure out how can we really drive down risk at an organization. And in order to do that, you have to start with having great data. And so that was kind of the focus of we want a platform make it easy, collaborative, to fill out any form from your smartphone and like save all the data along the way.
Well, and I'm sure you didn't know this then, but in the age of AI, I mean, data is going to be everything, right?
Yeah, AI is it's a crazy thing. I use it every day. It's wrong a lot. And so we have guardrails. We've built some tooling internally at WonderWrite. So just imagine you have like 20 trucking apps and you want to map the data from one app to the next. We built an AI tool to accelerate our mapping and it gives us recommendations and the recommendations are right about half the time, they're wrong about half the time and we're always trying to improve that. So it's definitely been a learning journey and exciting times too.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with that for like, being at exciting times. It's amazing. I think like you mentioned how it can be, inaccurate and it takes so much training. I think people underestimate how much training AI has to have. And really, if you think about it, it's artificial intelligence, right? Well, it's not that much different than human intelligence. Like you've still got to train somebody and repeat it back to them. I mean, I've used like, for example, just ChatGPT and I've said, no, change this word to that word. Don't use this phrase. And it'll do it again. And you're like, no, that's still wrong. And it's like, I'm sorry. And all I can think of is I feel like I'm training a team member in my business because I
Right.
need it to like, put out the result that I'm asking it for. And sometimes I have to ask more than once or change the way that I'm asking. It's crazy. But at the end of the day, if your AI is going to overlay into your business, the data has to be accurate, like you said, Peter. And I mean, if you're doing paper apps, I don't know about you, but I had an employee in my agency one time that I could never read her handwriting. It didn't even matter what she was writing. It was completely illegible. We used to joke she should be a doctor because they have like crazy handwriting. That's never going to be usable for anybody, really, even if it's a person or AI. So the fact that it's digital, everybody can use that.
I mean, even if you can, get the data, you still have the challenge of mapping it to a structured data set. And that's really kind of the underlying challenge, which is when you look at your agency management systems, they were actually really designed to store insurance policy data. So what's your address, that's covered for your home, for example? How much coverage do you have? And what's your deductible? They weren't designed to store questions like, do you have a pool? How deep is the pool? Is the pool fenced? Do you have a diving board? Do you have a dog? Is it a dangerous dog? What breed is it? Has it ever bit somebody? And so even if you can kind of extract the data, it's like how do you map it appropriately with a high level of confidence? And I think if I can share my screen, there's a meme. It's one of my favorite memes with AI. Um, this is this is my experience with ChatGPT. Why is the scar on the left appendix? And it's like, dude, you're right. It should have been the right append, like the left append, the other appendix. It's just like, how many times you got to correct the AI robot? And it's funny when you're asking silly questions about, some trivial matter, but when you're talking about something that's a material representation, or when you're having a car be self-driving, like you can't afford to have it kind of cut the wrong kidney out.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've never seen that meme before, so that was really good. Not to mention the fact that there's security issues, right? So like I've seen so many agents. I know we're not here to talk about,
Right.
AI or ChatGPT. We are definitely going to get into WonderWrite. But this is something to keep in mind, you guys, that, as they build AI into the WonderWrite tool, they're building it with security measures in place. Insurance is so heavily regulated, and you are pushing a lot of private data through these systems. And if you're trying to create your own internal like widgets and apps and custom GPTs or something, you got to remember that those guardrails and those safety measures aren't there. So tools like this that are really built for the industry and solve multiple problems, but then are starting to learn or working and building AI over top of it, are going to be where you want to stay for sure. So you said you built WonderWrite because, of course, of all the paperwork you had to deal with as a producer. So what do you see when agents are implementing this? What's the biggest feedback, the thing that they like the most about it?
We just got off a call this morning with an enterprise customer of ours. We're launching at a new office location, and there were eight women on the call, and we showed them a few key features, and their smiles just lit up. Like that, like it was like jaw dropping, and like I love to see that. Gabe, what were the features that they were most excited by on the call? I was like so busy demoing, I'm like not necessarily paying attention to facial expressions, but
Yeah, our VIN lookup and enrichment. So once you input a VIN, it'll enrich the year, make, model, and additional data. Um, there was also our autofill. So not having to key in and rekey data across forms. We kept some things in our back pocket, but extract is another great feature that they would have been blown away. So
I think like the one that really gets folks the most is if you've ever had to do a complex renewal, and again, I'll share my screen, maybe stealing some of Gabe's thunder, but if you've ever had to do a complex renewal, you're probably familiar with sending an email like this out, where there's a bunch of PDFs attached.
Mhm.
Now, I would venture to guess everyone on the call, if I pull out your phone and say, show me your screen time, you're probably on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You're probably on one of the social apps at least 20 minutes a day. Um,
That's generous. Probably way more than that.
I'd put money on it.
Yeah.
And the reality is we're addicted to our phones as a country. Like we literally can't cancel TikTok, even though it was like signed into law. Yet we still are sending our customers PDFs attached to an email that's like optimized for Outlook with a giant screen and Excel spreadsheets and Adobe. And so most of us like, and for our customers, like the insureds, they're used to doing it. They'll get it back to you. It might take a few weeks. Of course, being in this business, being first to market is critical. Like you're more likely to win. I would also venture to guess that Anybody on this call who's been in the business for a few years has lost an account to a market that they represent, or they have lost an account because they didn't get to market in time. And that is one of the most frustrating experiences you can have. If you're a producer on your account, extremely frustrating. If you're an account manager, it's not going to be a fun conversation with the production team. And so I think having a tool that makes this process way easier, faster, right from your smartphone, their faces just lit up because they're like, gosh, this just takes so much of the annoying admin work off my plate. Things like having to send a follow-up reminder. Hey, like Mariah, like please fill out the form that you're supposed to fill out. Like right now at most agencies, that's manually a person getting a notice in their activity saying, hey, I have to follow up to make sure I get the app completed. And nobody wants to be doing that work.
Mhm.
Like they like that's not like it's not like a positive touch point. It's just like something that should be automated, but it's tough to automate because the tools of the past was like an email with some attachments. And so they're like, wait a minute, you can kind of make workflow for all this and automate it so I can focus on the relationship and on the things that matter. I think that's probably the main thing that people get excited by.
I completely agree. The follow-up piece, I mean, if we all were able to just pick up the phone once and call a customer and they did exactly what we wanted in the moment and we never had to follow up, there would be like probably 70% less work in an insurance agency. I swear that most of what they have to do every day is paperwork, filling out information, and follow-up. Follow-up is the biggest piece. We implemented WonderWrite for one of our clients, and what we did with that client was a really old agency. They old school. I mean, just paper everything. They did have little digital forms here and there. And their team was a little hesitant for change. And we met with the team and we just asked them, like, what is the thing that you wish was just easier in your life? And this is a commercial only agency. And they were like, renewals. We have to use like 6 different platforms. It was so cumbersome and time consuming, and they were always behind on them. And the first thing we did was like, okay, we're gonna get WonderWrite moving. And we started talking about their process and implemented. I can just tell you, like, that team is so happy. They absolutely love the tool, and it has cut their renewal process in half, if not even a little more, depending on the actual client as they're getting moving. So, without further ado, let's jump into the demo. I want everybody to see this. It's so awesome.
Yeah, so we can jump I guess straight into a demo. Let me share my screen.
And for those of you who are here with us live, feel free to put into the chat any question that you have, and I will be keeping an eye on that as they demo here.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take questions midstream and be a little extemporaneous. All right, I'm gonna hit share, advanced portion of screen. Okay, so let me know if you all can see uh, our screen here.
Yeah, I see your email.
All right,
The
cool. So, so you see the email. That's great. So, this is kind of the way things have been done in the past, and let's just think through how we can do this with WonderWrite in a little bit faster and easier way. And so, to do that, I'm going to go to the home screen. By the way, just to kind of familiarize ourselves, like what are we looking at on the home screen? This is a dashboard, and it's a dashboard of things that are going to make you money. So it's like for every form here, you want to get these forms across the finish line because, filling out the, human services renewal app is going to make you more money. It's going to automate the renewal. Notably, you can see when you added or sent the renewal app or the new business app, and you can track the traction of your customers, like how far through the app are they? Are they saying that they've completed the application? And you can also do that for signatures as well. So WonderWrite provides not just over 11,000 forms in our library, you can also use WonderWrite for a digital signature platform. And the integrations, the data flowing in, it just all makes that easy. And one of the things that agencies really like is you can track all the signatures across your agency. So if someone is out sick or out on vacation, you can kind of follow up with any signatures that they might be waiting on. We can filter down by maybe just to say my accounts. And we can also filter down to say maybe just the last week and say what am I working on in the last week or maybe just yesterday. And so this is really a way to get a clear view of maybe an Accord 125 that we're working through. Everything is designed to be collaborative. So let's just, I guess, get started. I'm going into the commercial accounts. We have both commercial and personal, and we integrate with agency management systems like AMS 360, where all of your accounts come in out of the gate. So you'd come onto WonderWrite, you have all your accounts all your contacts, they're automatically in here and ready to go. So it doesn't take any extra time away from your team. And so here you can see a sample overview of an account called Pied Piper. We have an address and some kind of high level info. And you see that we also have like almost like an online statement of values, which we'll come back to later. But to start with, let's just focus on what does the experience look like, again, to replace kind of this experience of sending a form. So let's go ahead and add a form. Mariah, do you have any kind of forms you want us to try out live here?
Let's do some like trucking forms. We've been working with a lot more trucking agencies lately.
Trucking. We have a lot of agencies that do a lot of trucking. So, interestingly, we have agencies telling us that they actually use WonderWrite for market discovery. So maybe you have an opportunity and you like don't know which market to go to, and you don't know which questions to ask. You can get like a live look of like what's out there just by previewing the apps. So here I'm playing in this Acuity trucking app. If I did a lot of business with Acuity, I could go ahead and hit the favorites button, and this would add it to the top of my searches and make it easy to find. We also can templatize this. So say, for example, you always wanted these questions to be answered yes, or you always wanted to have a certain limit of liability. You could do that by making a template of this application. I'm going to skip that for now, but that's another automation that can save a lot of time, especially if you do niche business and you need like an annual renewal form and you want to make it simple. All right, so let's go ahead and fill out this form. WonderWrite's unique in the industry where we pull up the PDF and we pull up the web form side by side. You can actually work live in the PDF. So if I go over here and click coverage bound, and it might be a little bit small, I'll blow that up in a minute. You'll note that it checks it on the left side. If I check it on the left side, we uncheck it on the right side. That happens instantaneously. You have a full screen PDF for those of us who sometimes just like the ability to work on a PDF. This actually looks fantastic on an iPad Pro. If you have producers out in the field, you could literally be having them filling out forms where all the data they're going to put into it is getting tracked, as opposed to having it handwritten. You can also exit the full screen view. You can do a full screen web form view. For those of us who, grew up with the phone in our hands, this is a really clean on the eyes way of doing insurance apps. Not necessarily a lot of fun to have to answer these crazy tables. Not much you can do about it, though. That's like a requirement from the insurance company. Let's go ahead and show both of them side by side again. Okay, so let's suppose we want to get this completed with the customer. I want to highlight, first of all, we have this autofill engine. This is where we use AI internally to maximize the number of mappings. I'm going to hit autofill. WonderWrite's going to take all the data that's out there, and we're going to try and fill it in to the app. Now, notably, there might be some gibberish data from that we had used on a different application. But when I go to agency name as an example, you can see our cross-form mapping where we're pulling data from multiple areas. So here you can see we have it from the data, we have it from Accord 825, and maybe from a different app. But you can see we're filling in data automatically. That is reducing keystrokes. What we've found is that it takes on average 5 to 10 seconds to fill out a field on a form. And so if you can save, 10 fields per form, that's 100 seconds per form. How many forms you do in a year? Like that's a lot of retyping and rekeying we're going to automate for you. So let's say you want to get a few questions answered from our customer. I'm just going to go ahead and select, 1, 2, 3, maybe one more question, and I'm gonna actually add a note and just say like, do you ever go past 200 miles or 300 miles in radius? So I'm highlighting a question here. So I've selected a few questions, not the entire app. I'm gonna go ahead and hit send or sign, and I'm gonna assign these 4 questions to my customer Ehrlich. And I'm gonna hit next. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that we notify Ehrlich. I could put a message in here if I wanted to. We also have recurring reminders. Now, this is a great feature. I've personally had to fill out my D&O renewal when our prices were increasing at WonderWrite, and I got the first notice, I ignored it on WonderWrite, and then I got the second notice a few days later. I was like, oh yeah, I got to fill out my D&O renewal. Because as customers, you actually do want to be on the ball. Like if you're buying the product, like you do want to make sure you're doing the right things to keep your pricing down. But we're just busy. And so, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit assign and notify. And what you'll note here, if I scroll down the side of the app, is that Ehrlich's email and little avatar here is attached to a few questions. And you can see here it says Ehrlich Bachman is assigned 6 questions. 2 of those are conditional. Great. If I go on the Acuity app here, you can see that Ehrlich's name is attached to it. And if I go to the dashboard and I look at today, you'll see that on Pied Piper, the Acuity trucking app, we've answered 9 out of 68. Ehrlich is assigned 6 questions. So we now have granular level visibility into everything that's happening on that app. In fact, if we wanted to click in to the activity log, you can even see how Peter answered every single question on that application and how I assigned it. We'll come back to that later, but it's great from E&O purposes. You don't have to put an activity into activity. It just does it for you automatically. So I'm going to go over to the customer view, and I want to pull this up kind of like an iPhone or smartphone, because the reality is, I would say, I think about 80% of the insureds are using their smartphones to open up applications. So here's an email. It's going to be branded to your agency with your agency logo, the email is, and it's going to say, "Hi, Mr. or Mrs. Insured. Your agent assigned 6 questions to you." You'll note I can also put in my license in the bottom in the email if that's like requirement, for example, in California. And then the insurer is just going to simply hit answer questions. Even if it's their first time using this, they never have to create an account. They don't have to create a password. The email link's going to log them right in. And that's important because I think the average person like just struggles with passwords, especially on your phone. Like if you get a link to something, the last thing that you want to do is like create a password. It's just going to, make you fall off from the process. And so here you can see rather than showing the whole app, it's just a few questions, very simple. So, do you act as a freight forwarder? Yes. Oh, this is a conditional question. So, if yes, in what name? I could put in like Pied Piper Trucking. Do you haul oversized? Now, I'm guessing this is a conditional question. So, let's just say no, no, and no. Or I'll say 150 miles. And you can see that the note that the agent left for us shows up there as well. So, I've answered a few questions. I'm going to go ahead and hit I'm done. I'm gonna say I'm done, notify agent. The customer, we want to celebrate, we throw a bit of confetti, and we'll have a blue call to action here to show me remaining forms. So maybe we only assign that one app and that's all we need the customer to do. But oftentimes in insurance, we have multiple forms. Even if you're just applying for trucking insurance, like you probably have multiple trucking apps because you want to make sure that you're covering the market, being first to market, and doing a great comprehensive job. So now the customer was prompted to say, what else do I have to do? Now, in this case, I actually had some work assigned to the customer earlier, and you can see here there's actually a really nice, clean task list. What I like about task lists is that I find that if you can be very clear about what you need to do next in a process and communicate it and make it actionable, people are more likely to take the next steps. I think if you kind of contrast it by going back to this email, it's like, man, there's a lot of stuff to do here. And this can be overwhelming. And maybe we forget to put the attachment on, but we answered the questions. Maybe I need to forward a question to a different person on the team. So we have this very simple task list. You'll notice, by the way, we can fill out an entire application. So here's a YMCA questionnaire with 300 questions in it. I wouldn't recommend filling this out on your smartphone, but the cool part is you actually can. We've done Accords. You can actually fill out Accords straight up from your phone. And when you look at this, you're like, you might not want to do this, but you can do it now. And so for your customers who are, waiting on the tarmac to take off on a trip, if you're a contractor, maybe filling out a 4-page contractor's questionnaire, waiting on the job site, like you can actually do that now. And just a little call out as well. You see here there's an upload. If you're on the call, like maybe you've been in a position before where it's like you fill out the entire app and you submit it, and then the underwriter's like, "Hey, the app said I need a copy of a contract or I need a brochure explaining what it is the work that you do," and you're like, "Oh crap, how could I forget that?" And now you got to go back to the customer, ask them to for their financials or whatever. We're gonna put that right into the questionnaire itself. So like on this case, this is a YMCA app. You literally won't be able to forget it because it's right there in your face. We also have the ability, in addition to, standard PDFs, we have very simple, what we call kind of like an uploader. So maybe you need a secure way to get financials or declaration pages. The customer, you can just assign this to them. They can just upload their financials. This is going to be secure, branded to your agency, and it's going to elevate your perception in the customer's mind who's used to doing things in a digital savvy way from their smart device. So let's go back now to the agent view. Let's go back here to the overview. Notably, by the way, on the collaborator page, I have the ability to view Ehrlich's tasks. So let's say Ehrlich gives me a call. I can go in and see like what are we waiting on him to fill out? And I can kind of see, this is a lot, by the way. This is just kind of a demo account. And you can kind of filter by completed or incompleted, and you can copy a link if you want to. You can notify the customer, hey, go do this. And that way you're giving them like what feels like an automated push to do something, even if you're trying to push it along as the agent without necessarily sending an email. So that's kind of a high level. If I go back to the home page, I can see now that Ehrlich is done answering the form. And from here, I can go ahead and now that he's completed it, I can review it and I can either download this form, I can flatten it, meaning you can't edit it anymore, to send to market. Notably, if we wanted to, we could request a signature on it. So we have like a signature capability in WonderWrite, again, built in. When I hit the complete button, if you have an AMS integration, this sends directly to your AMS, activity. Here I have that app we just filled out. And let's say I actually wanted to fill out an agreement as well. You could drag and drop an agreement and have multiple files. And you can rearrange the order that the documents appear. So it's a real nice, digital signature tool. I'm probably going to skip through the whole overview of digital signature because you all probably live that every day. So there's more that I can show you on the form side, but that was to answer your question, Mariah, on the demo on kind of forms. So maybe pause and just again highlight real quick on the activity log. Here you can see that Ehrlich answered 8 questions. In fact, you can see how he answered every single question. So you remember earlier in the call where I was like talking about AI and data and how your AMS doesn't really have a spot like
Yeah.
is there a spot in your AMS? What's your normal operating radius in miles? Like, there's not a spot in your AMS for that. And that was kind of one of our early insights. And so here you can see WonderWrite now has that data point, 150 miles. And that's kind of logged for eternity of your account. And so you can now use that. You can search it. It can cross map to other forms. And that's just some of the insight that we bring when you're tracking all of this. But most importantly, we see that, most of the time, majority of the time, the insureds are getting back same day. That's what our data has shown us in 2024.
Wow. Same day. That's crazy.
It is. It is
Just because it's
crazy.
so easy, though, it makes sense. Because I mean, if you open an email and you've got a whole bunch of steps and forms to open and things you have to manually print or sign, or it's going to be a much longer process. So if it's quick and easy and short, I mean, that's the world that we live in today, right? Instant gratification.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only instant gratification, but I mean, how many times do you work an account where like you're working hard on it and then you're context switching and then you have to come back next week and remember what you're working on. So when your customers get back same day, you can get it to market. The big picture is in the world of insurance, the person who's first to market is most likely to win. And so our goal is we want to make it easy to put a top of stack submission first to market. So I guess like any questions pop up along the way. Maybe
We
like any
had one
questions from your
question so
side.
far about integration with Agency Zoom. Gabe answered that for us in the chat. But yes, WonderWrite has a Zapier integration, so you can connect that into Agency Zoom. You mentioned direct integrations to AMS 360, Peter. Are there any other direct integrations that you guys have currently?
Yeah, so the answer to that is specifically is we have an indirect integration to Applied Epic through a third party called Synatic. That's live for a few customers. You have to have what's called the BDE bulk data extract and SDK software development kit. So that's more for like, larger agencies that will typically have that, probably over 50 people is where they might start having that. And we are contemplating our next integration. I think top of the list that we're thinking through right now is Sajida and maybe Hawksoft. The reality is to do an integration, we want to make sure we do it right and that it's scalable and accurate and the data is having integrity. So we make sure we scope out enough time to like build them appropriately on the integration side.
Yeah, and that's something you guys to watch for just in general as you're looking at insurance technology. Just because someone on their website somewhere it says that there's an integration, keep in mind that the varying levels of that are, something you want to dig into. Sometimes they put that up that they're integrating with all these platforms and all they're talking about is Zapier. And other times, the integration might be, yeah, it will make something or create one piece, but all of those data fields are mapped. That was one thing when we took one of our clients specifically through the WonderWrite process was that you guys really pulled that AMS 360 data, cleaned it, looked at it, actually went through that process to make sure it was correct before it was pushed into WonderWrite. It wasn't just a button that you push.
Yeah, I mean we're working with I think 6 of the top 20 brokerages in the country. I mean these are really large organizations with like 5, 10,000 people. And like they take things very seriously. We have to go through due diligence, technical due diligence. Recently we had to do AI due diligence where they're
Mhm.
like, how are you using AI? You know, they're super protective of their data and they have the scale to have people dive into that. So we take that very seriously. I've seen customers go through cyber events. I'm sure everyone on this call has. I've received emails from agents that have links you shouldn't click, and it's like that's kind of the scariest thing in the world is like not being secure and like not having accurate data. So I have a
Yeah.
couple more cool things I can highlight, but I still want to give room to, as well to like let it breathe for a second or take room for
Yeah, if
questions.
you guys have questions, if there's something you're curious that it does, please put your question into the chat. I think I have to say that I didn't realize you guys launched personal forms. When did that happen? How did I miss that?
Yeah, we've actually had them for a while. And the reasoning was when I was an insurance agent, actually one of the earliest use cases I had was I'm selling commercial deals. I want to cross-sell like home insurance as an example.
Mhm.
I kind of know the questions that I need to ask. Address, when did you update the roof? Like, do you have a pool? You have a dog? Like, you kind of know the questions, but it wasn't comprehensive. I was like, I need a tool where I can very quickly say, Mariah, like, hey, you trust us for your business insurance. Would it be a bad idea to take 5 minutes? And even if you don't buy your personal insurance from us, like, we'll sell you home insurance. We can review it for you, make sure you're like in a good spot. But in order for that to work, I need a 5 minute comprehensive thing where I can rip through all the questions. I get 5 minutes of your time, I'll get everything answered. And so from the very beginning, long answer to short question, Mariah. From the very beginning, I wanted this to be a tool that if you're using it for your commercial accounts, you can also use it for their personal insurance. And so we have those forms on there. We have a lot of folks using it, especially if you're integrated with AMS 360 as an example. Imagine you can send any form to any personal customer in 2 clicks, and when they finish it, it automatically goes into your AMS. So it's like, oh, you need a lost policy release. That's a non-revenue generating item because your customer's leaving the agency. It's like, oh, customer name, form name, send, and you're done. It's like you're done. As soon as they sign it, it's in the AMS. Like you don't have to do anything else. So that's something we've had for a while, and probably depending on the demo, like maybe I don't show it. So
Could be. I don't know. The other side, of course, is that I feel like you guys are all software companies in general. You guys are moving at the speed of light right now, so it is really hard to keep up.
yeah, it's true. We release new software every week, and
Every
so
week. Oh my gosh.
yeah. Well, it's in and it's That's actually like a hygiene thing. You want to release software quickly because if you have critical items, you want to make sure that you're in a great cadence and a good like muscle memory to do that. So sometimes it might be a small feature, but we're releasing features every week.
So one of the features that, and I don't know the answer to this yet. So you can send the form, you can get all the questions answered, and then they can sign the form. Is there a way for them to do payment? Is there like an integration? Is that something you guys are looking at? I think I've asked you this before.
Yeah, we've looked into it, and we have some of the payments companies that are out there knocking on our doors. We would love to, and we haven't tackled it just yet. I think the reason being, from a product perspective, you always got to be thinking like, what is the thing that most customers are asking for,
Mhm.
that will drive the most value? And I think ironically for us, like our top 3 features for the remainder of the year, number one, it's what I call a chord overflow. So interestingly, we found that our top forms is like people are doing a lot of accords in WonderWrite. And when you work with a big vehicle schedule or big driver schedule, they want to do they want to like some sophisticated overflow with accords. So that's like a feature. Um, Sharing schedules is probably the next one. And I haven't even talked about schedules, which I can highlight here real quick. But if anybody on the call has worked with an organization that has, multiple vehicles, multiple drivers, locations, an equipment list, a critical part of your renewal process is not just filling out the forms, like the renewal forms, renewal apps. It's actually reviewing your vehicle schedule and your equipment schedule and saying, like, do you still have this equipment? Is this still accurate? And if you were to ask most agencies in the call, like, how are you doing this today? Feel free to throw it in the chat. Like, how are you updating your schedules every year? And I think invariably what we hear from folks is, oh, like we have a spreadsheet we keep track of it on.
Yeah.
And the reason they have a spreadsheet is because the agency management system, it only really keeps track of the stuff you've bought insurance for. Some agencies will export the schedules from the AMS and they'll email the spreadsheet to the customer. But now you're kind of back to square one. You're kind of back to that. If I share my screen again, you're now back to this situation where you, instead of having just a PDF, there's an Excel spreadsheet and it's like
Mhm.
vehicle schedule. And it's like, yeah, again, that's not really actionable on your phone. So how we think about this, let's just start from scratch, by the way. If I go to this account Pied Piper and I go to their vehicles, or let's go to their drivers, and let me pull up for the demonstration purposes. Here's an example spreadsheet. You're probably familiar with seeing something like this. This is a driver schedule. I have here a random column just because one of the problems with importing and exporting schedules is you always have to deal with uh, column mismatching. So I'm gonna go ahead
Mhm.
and close this, but we have like we know we have that. I'm gonna hit don't save, import spreadsheet. And so we can just select that driver schedule, hit open, and WonderWrite's going to automatically import the schedule instantaneously. We're automatically going to map the columns for you. In this case, we're like, hey, we couldn't map one of the columns. And that's the random column that I highlighted. So we can choose to maybe map it to a notes section, or maybe we can just say discard. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. I should have highlighted, but I didn't. If you needed to make updates, you can actually make updates in the schedule, just like working in Excel. Like it's very, very easy. In fact, let me go ahead and show all columns. It's very easy to select multiple rows and columns and copy and paste and undo with keyboard, all with keyboard shortcuts, just like you're used to using Excel. And so this is a really easy way to manage your schedule. So that's an example of a driver schedule. This is the one Gabe was talking about earlier, by the way. I have a list of vehicle identification numbers. You could suppose you got this on a declarations page from a competitor, or maybe from an email from your customer. You can just copy, directly from the spreadsheet, Control C, and go into WonderWrite and hit to the VINs and just Control V, paste in the VINs, and we'll automatically build that schedule out and we'll instantaneously pull the year, make, and model. So this is pulling in third-party data that can then be used to pre-fill any application that you fill out, whether it's an Accord or a supplemental. In fact, if you hit view data, you can see here the vehicle's gross vehicle weight, how many, is it all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive? How many doors does it have? There's even this image. So for example, if you have a Polaris Gem and you have no idea what kind of vehicle that is, you can say, oh, this is like a low speed vehicle. Like what kind of insurance do we need?
Little golf
Well,
cart.
yeah, exactly. We'll also highlight if the VIN might look like it might be inaccurate. And the reason this matters today is like how often have you gotten a VIN from a contracting customer who's driving back from the dealer or whatever, and he tells you an O instead of a zero or vice versa. The reality is 5% of VINs today in this country are inaccurately insured. And so this is just a check to make sure the data is accurate. If you extrapolate this to the building section, this is where we can pull in details like protection class or flood zone, like this is a flood zone X. You can look up replacement cost estimate. Like all of this data pulls in instantaneously for any property that you are storing in the schedule. And so that's really valuable for if you ever had to like look up data on the assessor's website or anywhere, data that should just be on the application automatically because it's out there on Zillow already and LoopNet. Like we want to make it easy to do that. So that's how we think about schedules. We have the vehicles, we have the drivers. It's all under what I would call our version control. So here you can see that Peter added a bunch of vehicles just now, and before that, I added a bunch of drivers. So imagine you now have a schedule of insurance or a schedule of vehicles or drivers or equipment, which is one that we were talking about. Here's like the equipment schedule. You have that. Every change is tracked. Imagine you can now share this with the customer as well without having to go back to kind of an email. And that's kind of one of the most requested features that we're wrapping up as we wrap up the year.
So you're gonna be able to send this to the client and they can basically say, yes, I still have this or I don't.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we actually already have this live. So if I were to go over to the customer view and go to the risk data, I've given them access in this case to equipment, vehicles, and drivers. Where did that go? Equipment, vehicles, drivers. I have not given them access to anything else. So if I go over to my collaborators, let's see, edit, you can see that this collaborator has permission on equipment, vehicles, drivers. They don't have access to buildings and premises. Maybe they're just a fleet manager, for example. But yeah, they can go ahead and they can click into the vehicles and they can make changes, right in their phone or their smart device or laptop. They can go ahead and hit delete on a vehicle. So we actually already have the functionality, but the feature that we need is, and one of the pieces of feedback we get all the time, they're like, wow, this is so easy. Like I could figure this out even without any training. And that's kind of one of our goals. The feedback we've had is we want an easy way to have a button here that says, send schedule right here. And we don't have that button today. And so that's one of the buttons that there'll be a thing where you hit like send schedule. There's going to be some like notifications we have to work through and some like comparing, like you want to get a summary of what your customer touched. That's very easy and intuitive. So those are some of the things we're working through on the sharing of the schedules for later this year.
So one thing I don't know if we've kind of driven home enough, like all this information that you're talking about having here inside the customer profile. I mean, once the information is there, every renewal, every new policy you're going to write, maybe they want cyber, right? They need cyber now, and they're recommending that. You can take all of that. You don't have to go find it in your AMS, find it on an old Accord, look in your files or your Dropboxes. It's just all there, and you can push it and fill it into these new applications and these new renewals.
100%. Yeah. So two thoughts there. You're selling this for me. I mean, if you if you want to look up, here's an Accord 825, you can go ahead and make a copy and you can copy responses from the original form. So if you're working on, say, the 2026 renewal, there you go. We copy the responses from the original form and that's it. It takes 2 seconds. That's like what everyone is typically doing in the space. Now I can go open that application up. I can make any changes I want in the Accord before sending it off to the customer. And we're tracking all the data. Again, with the age of AI, we want to be very well positioned where we have this data, it's structured, and we can start to touch it, with AI. So you're absolutely spot on there on the renewal side.
It's just all the information that you would normally have sprinkled through, your AMS, your CRM, your notepad, your email, documents that was just all over in these different systems, just in one hub for each of your clients.
Yeah, and I'll show you another way that we think about this as well is not just a renewal, but one of the challenges we've had to ask ourselves is, real question is what's the cost to onboard to WonderWrite? Because the first year you go to use WonderWrite, you kind of have to like get your apps from last year into WonderWrite.
Yeah, to
So
get it
there's
all
a
in.
couple ways you can do that. One way is you could just say like upload last year's forms, maybe deck pages or whatever. You could upload those. Another way that you can do this in WonderWrite, and let's just take an example. This is what we call WonderWrite extract. Here's the example Gabe was mentioning where, it's a handwritten application. We actually did this ourselves. We
Build some copy on it.
yeah, just for fun. We want to give ourselves some hard tests. And so we say, look, can we upload a PDF like this and extract the data? And so I'm going to just type in the customer's name, Pied Piper, and hit next. And now I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that PDF and hit next. And just like Shazam will recognize a song on the radio by comparing what it hears to like its database of all the songs that are out there, we're like, hey, we have a library of apps. We can take a snapshot of the app and compare that to our library. So what our software does, what WonderWrite Extract does, is we look at the application, we compare it to our library. If we find a match, we will then kind of extract the data from this like handwritten application, and we will then inject that data in a structured format into a blank copy of like the renewal app so that it makes it easier for folks to onboard to the software for the first time. Or maybe, for example, if you have a producer that still wants to do things by hand, well, this is like an easy way to take a handwritten app that a producer put together and actually onboard it to WonderWrite. So now it's structured. Imagine you go through your AMS and you say, how many scanned PDFs do we have? That the data is pretty much like not usable.
Yeah.
It's a shame because like it's a lot of data we've gathered. We should make it easy to capture that data. So here you can see WonderWrite's like, look, we found a match. It's the Westfield Auto application. We extracted 29 answers. Now this is a beta feature. It's been live for about a year, and we've just been opening it up more and more because we want to get more and more feedback on it. So we do recommend that you kind of review the answers. Here you can see the app that we pulled in versus whatever was uploaded. So we do recommend that like your job should be, look, pull up, pull up this PDF side by side and kind of compare it to make sure that things are accurate for you. But your job moves from rekeying data to like being a reviewer on the process. And we've found agencies that are finding success with that to kind of get started faster.
Yeah, that's an immense value because, of course, having to, like I said before, read the handwriting. So you're letting the system do it at least the best that it can. And we talk about this a lot in automation too. It's doing things today for your future self, right? I'm going to do this today. I'm going to get all this customer data in there because you know that policy is going to renew in a year. And how fast does a year come by, you guys? We pick up our renewals and we're like, holy crap, I just did this. I just did all of these accords and forms. So you do it once, it's in there over and over. And this is just a problem in general that you guys have solved so like brilliantly in the insurance industry, is that there is like this huge lack of a source of truth in data from the carrier to the AMS platform to the agent. And this goes way beyond forms and documents. This goes beyond a really archaic issue within the insurance industry in general that bleeds into all of the systems. So by you guys really creating this source of truth for your client, not just in underwriting information, but in anything else that you might want to have. Can you do like custom fields, for example? Can you put like custom stuff in there that you want to know about your customer, notes and whatnot?
Yeah, so we have a lot. Most of our agencies send us their own custom forms. So maybe like you specialize in HVAC contracting and you have your own HVAC intake form that asks all the questions like you need to get your job done and to run your process. We have a lot of agencies that do something like that. And so not only can you pull that app into WonderWrite, we digitize it for you. 4 to 5 days typically is our median turnaround. We also can map that to all the other HVAC apps. We probably have a few hundred HVAC apps, and so you could make it so that you fill in your intake form and we can fill out with the data from your intake form. We can fill out the accords, we can fill out the supplementals, and we can make it easy to send it to your customer. And so that's, just makes the whole process easier and more efficient. And yeah, I love your point, by the way, about making it easy for your future self. It's very true. And so I think for us at WonderWrite, our goal is to, make it easy for your future self, if you will, make it easy for yourself today, make it easy for your customers ultimately. We want to have a great digital online customer experience. Um, and so that's kind of our goal. And the way we do that today, again, it's by doing the forms and making the forms and signatures very easy. But to your point, Mariah, like what's behind this, it's really about, yeah, that problem that everybody's experienced, which is I got to photocopy last year's app or make a copy of last year's app, or I don't know how to keep track of my schedules because like the AMS is tracking what the person bought for coverage, but I need to track what do they actually have for exposures. And we were like, there needs to be a better way to do this. And that's kind of where the vision is. And we're still in the thick of it. We're still in the early days, so to speak. We've been around, I think, full time since we incorporated in 2018, went full time in 2019. But we're still pumped about the future. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and with AI coming, I think to kind of loop back to the beginning, the key for AI is you have to have not just data, but like clean, good quality data.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we want to be positioned. We want to be in a spot where whether it's making it easy to import your schedules, easy to import last year's apps, easy to pull in third-party data, the protection class, replacement cost, the VIN decoder, like all that stuff. Make it easy to pull the data, structure the data, so that you can do your work as a risk advisor, as an insurance advisor.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. The one of the things we're seeing in the space in general is all these one-to-one solutions, right? This AI solves this problem. It'll fill out a cert. This one will fill out an accord. This one will place a phone call. This one will, whatever, send an automated email. All these one-to-one platforms ends up with a ton of tools in your agency that you're having to subscribe to and pay for, and having this single source of truth for all the information about your client that has multiple points. You guys, it's so unique. I mean, I demo and review hundreds of different pieces of tech every single week, and this is so robust. It has so many applications in your day-to-day operations. It's amazing, and it's really cool to see how far it's come just in the short amount of time that I've even been aware of the service. Right, like you guys have been around so much longer than I've been experiencing your platform for clients. So you mentioned some of the things that are coming to WonderWrite this year. Do you have a little bit of insight, or have you guys started to look at 2026 and what you might have on your wish list? Can I ask early?
Um,
You can tell me no too. That's okay.
yeah, well, it's funny because like I'm so in the thick that sometimes like I don't even know.
Yeah.
Let me see
Like,
releases.
what are we even talking about doing? Because there's
Yeah,
always something, right? Those roadmaps are always so full.
they are full. I can tell you, and I'll try and pull up our roadmap here. Give me a second. I know that like the top of mind thing for me is really the agency management system integrations. So
Hmm.
we're contemplating we've pretty much kind of committed to like building at least one next integration, probably kicking off by the end of the year, if not two or three. And the reason there is just as much as I would love to just build features for WonderWrite all day, if we can't talk to your system, it's just extra work for the team. I mean, you get
Yeah.
that better than anybody as somebody who, has experience connecting systems. So that's really a top focus of ours. I think there's some smaller features that customers have asked us for, we're working towards. For me, the thing I'm most excited about is really the sending of the schedules because that makes a comprehensive package that allows you to send your accords, your excess and surplus and supplemental apps, your signatures, and your schedules. And that's really kind of like the basis of a submission. And so maybe what I can share, one of the new things we've launched since, I think probably we last connected on it. And this is probably where we want to go, longer term, is we have this, what we call a submissions feature. So today, we worked with Ehrlich and we sent Ehrlich a task list. Well, what if we want to say, wow, this is like a lot of forms, 41 forms. You can imagine over time, if you looked at one of your accounts, they're gonna have a lot of apps just sitting out there in your database. We have this concept of a submission. And so a submission would be something like you could say I have a, auto renewal in 2026. This is a feature we launched, I don't know, a few months back. Let's say this is a March 1st, 2026 renewal. So you want to make sure you have everything done and wrapped up before Christmas. I'm going to hit save. I can go ahead and add forms. So let's say I wanted to add that Westfield auto application we just completed, along with maybe we have an Accord 127 as the business auto app. So I'm going to go ahead and add those apps. And then I want to get a signature. Again, later this year, we're going to have the ability to add um, the vehicle schedule, the driver schedule. So we have kind of the vehicles and the drivers here. We're going to have the ability to take a snapshot of that and put in a submission. So what we're really working for, and I see you kind of like squinting. So what we're really looking to do here is I want to have like the equivalent of a digital submission. Right now, the only action here is like downloading the files. And like, what do you do next? It's like you email it to your underwriter or you enter it into a rating software. And so you can just, if you think about like, hey, you have the data is structured. Can you help us get it to our markets? We want to help you get to market faster. And so part of what I'm thinking about is, could we make a giant button here that's like send to market? And I'm not necessarily looking to get pricing back. I just want to get a digital payload of data, whether it's sent in an email or some sort of digital structure. It doesn't really matter. But like, how can we make it easy for the agents to not just send it to market, but track their submissions? So you could say like, look, I'm working on this auto. Here's who we've sent it to. Here's who's responded back with pricing. Here's who hasn't. That's like a big part of your job if you're an account manager, is just being kind of like the human Kanban board, like the Trello board of like where my submissions are. And that's something that software can just, it can take the burden off of you of having to have all those brain cells occupied with where does my account, like where's Travelers, where's Hartford, where's Chubb on this, where's the pricing on it, who's the most competitive market. Um, that would be a part that would help our vision just make all transactions like efficient and more human. And that's kind of the objective there.
I can imagine that your markets and your underwriters are also going to appreciate a very clean, easy to read and take in application. Might get you a little preference on the priority on their desk because we all know how much we're all, trying to bribe our underwriters these days, sending cookies for Christmas and keep me at the top of your list and on the, you don't want to get on their naughty list, right? So if you can send them a really nice clean submission compared to your competitors, they're going to be able to move through that faster for you. And like Peter said, speed to market. The other thing I keep thinking of is from the consumer perspective, because I shopped my insurance not too long ago, like less than a year ago, and all the agents, I'm here in Idaho. it's like the Wild West. So everybody's, technology is not really a thing here, except for we do have Micron, but the most people in small businesses don't have it. So I had to do a lot of emailing back and forth of deck pages and all sorts of things and whatnot. And it was a pain in the butt. So if you think about it from a consumer perspective, if they have this experience with your agency, and even if they do get upset or, their rate goes up and they decide they want to shop, the experience they're likely going to have with the insurance agency down the road who doesn't have WonderWrite, or until at least, they get it, because eventually you guys will just take over the world and that's what everybody will use. But in the meantime, it's a completely different experience for that customer. Can you imagine if they're used to this and they have to go back to the old way? They're just going to get frustrated. They're going to give up on shopping, or at least I would if I was the consumer. I wouldn't want to go through that again.
Yeah, look, our easiest one call close ever was an agency that called out to us and they're like, our competitor has some cool tech and it made the apps way easier. They're like, we need this. I showed
Yeah.
them the software. They're like, all right, let's get started. And like literally we got off the call like that. We started right away.
Yeah.
We've also closed some of our biggest accounts, like national accounts, where they're like, our customers are demanding a better experience. If you can imagine you're an operations manager and you have to do 10, 15 insurance apps a year, and you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in premium, your renewals are going up 10, 20, $30,000. You're just like, wait a minute, I'm paying you how much money? $500,000 to $1 million plus dollars, and I'm emailing you stuff back and forth. Like there's got to be a better way. Like the AI, ChatGPT could do this, like
Yep.
they see technology. So 100%. The customer experience is paramount. And that actually comes back to the original, goal where I was, 23-year-old insurance salesperson that played a lot of video games as a kid and like was super tech savvy. And I'm just like, why are we giving our technology is so bad, but the net effect is that the customer experience is just awful. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that way.
When I came from the banking industry, I came from JP Morgan Chase into Farmers Insurance. And I went home one night and told my husband, I was like, I don't understand how the insurance industry is still afloat. Their tech is so bad. It reminded me of green screens when I'd first gotten into banking. When I worked at Wells Fargo, we still had some green screens.
Right.
So, Chase is like one of the industry leaders in technology for the banking industry. And then you come into insurance and you're like, what have you guys been doing over here this whole time? So it is amazing to see tools like this. I love the WonderWrite tool. Our customers continue to love implementing it and saving themselves time. I can't wait to see where you guys continue to go and how this is going to change agencies. For anyone that's here with us live, any last minute questions that you guys have for today, and then we'll wrap up. Gabe or Peter, do you want to leave us with final thoughts? I think you guys have a promo, right? Or something that's going on too?
Yeah, Gabe, you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so we have a special promo running for anyone who signs up with us in October. We give out 10%, so 10% on your annual discount.
October 2025, because we'll put this on YouTube as well. So
I can't believe it's October.
yeah, my kids just said we needed to get their Halloween costumes, and I couldn't believe it.
What are you dressing
Crazy.
up as?
My daughter is dressing up as an anime character, and then my son he's 11. I'm pretty sure it's been like 11 Halloweens. He's Sonic the Hedgehog. It's his favorite. His whole bedroom, most of his wardrobe is either Sonic or baseball. Kid's obsessed. But this year he is requiring that Dad and I also dress up as Sonic characters, which is a first. So I will have to be, my husband's going to be Dr. Eggman,
There you go.
and I'm going to be Shadow.
What about, isn't maybe like a sidekick Miles or something?
Sidekick Miles. I haven't heard that one, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I don't know.
It's been a while since I played Sega as a kid,
Yeah, I know, right? I know. It's crazy. My husband loves Sonic the Hedgehog, and now our son does too. It's crazy. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it. We will have the replay, you guys, on our YouTube channel if you want to go back and look at this. And how do they reach out to you? What is the best way to get in contact with WonderWrite?
So I'd say, WonderWrite.com, WUNDERITE. So just go to our website. You can sign up for a free trial there. You can sign up for a demo as well. I'd say the easiest way to sign up for a demo is you can just hit book a demo. That will grab a time on Gabe's Calendly. Talk about automating, it will just literally just show you his calendar. And so you can kind of do either option. And then of course, we're both pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can shoot us an email if you want as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate all you're doing.
Thanks.
Talk soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.